Presented by PrizePicks. $100 match on your first deposit with the promo code. Welcome to Light Years. I got Jason Dumas from Kron joining me today. And by the way, guys, if you're playing PrizePick, free square today. If you picked LeBron, Cliff Notes, he did have more than half a point in today's game. USA beats Serbia. I know you watched the game this morning. I just want to start with my opinion on it. Dude, LeBron, KD, Steph, it's wild. Still the best players on this team are the three old guys. And just it seems like it's going to be that way going the whole way through the tournament. Like, it's still led by the old guard.
Yeah, it sounds cliche and it sounds corny, but I'm getting to that point where I take a step back and just kind of appreciate what we've been watching the last 15 years between those three guys. Like, they're probably, I'm not going to go through the list right now, but, they're probably all top 15 players that have ever picked up a basketball. And, they're all good guys too. Obviously, some of them have their personality traits that might be off-putting to certain people, but I don't think anyone can argue when it's all said and done. They just seem like good dudes. So they're, obviously they're in the twilights of their career, but those three carried a generation of basketball, and it's kind of just cool to see them all together, kind of their final hurrah.
I was a little surprised that KD played in this game, just because going into Sunday, it seemed like he was going to miss the first game and things were going slow. And obviously, Warrior fans, calf injury, we all remember 2019 leading to the Achilles, but did not bother him at all today. Score one for the guys with surgically rehabilitated Achilles, right? That's your guy right there. Dude, 8 for 8 in the first half, man. He was on fire.
Yeah, man. He's just when KD gets it going, it's like almost the perfect offensive player that we've ever seen. Just from an offensive standpoint, a guy with that much length who shoots it at that level and can get to the rim. He's like a creative player on offense. And he has to pick his spots a little more, obviously, because of all the trauma to his lower body. But when he gets it going, it's like something we've never seen before.
And you just can plug him in. That's the thing that's always noticeable with international ball. He doesn't dribble as much. Everyone always used to say it about Melo, Olympic Melo, but KD's the same thing, only, better. Exactly. So he just pops in there. He had 20 points in the first half or 23 in the first half. Let me get that wrong. And it was just I don't know. I saw him dribble the ball 5 times, maybe. It was just kind of pop up, swish, pop through, swish, one dribble, swish, that type of thing. And it's to do that without having practiced with the team. I feel like that's the most unique thing about KD, because even when he was on the Warriors, it's always this way. He gets hurt, he misses a month. First game back, it's the only noticeable thing about the injury is maybe he doesn't have wind to play 35, 40 minutes, but there's no rust that he has to knock off. It's just so pure every time he's in there.
Yeah, easy money sniper. He lives out that name. He makes it look easy.
The only other really interesting point about this game was Jayson Tatum.
Oh yeah. Jayson Tatum. I thought you were about to get some Embiid digs in.
No, we've already got those in all preseason tour.
Some people thought Tatum was pouting on the bench. I saw that. Tatum. It's interesting because obviously all these guys are talented and they all have a role that they have to play, and if they're featured, they can all make an impact. But I feel like Kevin Durant coming back and having that game almost made Tatum obsolete.
Yeah, it's it's the cliche. There's only one ball. So how are you going to slot into being, I don't want to say a role player, because any guy on this team can have a night where they get 20. Drew Holiday got 15, and it's not because they were featuring him. He was just the beneficiary of cuts, of running in transition, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Tatum's used to playing with the ball in his hands. He's used to being the point forward. And look, he's not as good as LeBron at that. Like, if you're going to run the offense through a point forward, it's going to be through LeBron James. So can you function as kind of an off-ball threat, running off of screens, hitting open shots? And look, Kevin Durant can do that. Kevin Durant can do whatever he wants on the basketball court comfortably. And Devin Booker slots in a lot more comfortably, just like, okay, I'm not running the offense. I'll run off screens and I'll drill shots.
Right.
And through the, I don't want to call it preseason, but like the exhibition run of games before this, Tatum was struggling with that. He'd get the ball and he'd want to kind of go into his move, go one-on-one, and you just don't need that. You don't need that on that. Exactly. You just don't need that on this team. They have too much talent. Like, every time he breaks it off to try to go one-on-one in the mid-range, like, that's a win for the defense compared to, Kevin Durant shooting it off the catch, or LeBron going to the rim, or any one of those like higher percentage looks.
Yeah, 100%. He's one of those guys, like, he really has to conform his game, and you wonder what it looks like when he does conform it. He clearly doesn't seem as comfortable. And like you said, we're splitting hairs here. Like, it's still Jayson Tatum. He's still wildly talented, and he'll probably figure it out. But just in the context of this team and this roster, it's looking like he's probably going to have to make the biggest adjustment as anyone other than Embiid, just because of the style of play that Embiid plays.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of those things where you just remove one guy who wants to hold the ball a little more and kind of go one-on-one, and put more guys into it who want to play that, what's Steve Kerr always say, half-second basketball, half-second basketball. They looked better against Serbia. Serbia, by the way, one of the 3 or 4 best teams roster-wise in this tournament. Obviously, you got Jokic, Bogdanovic is an excellent player. They've obviously, proven it on the international stage. They have a lot of continuity and a lot of accomplished players. Team USA looked really good against them this game. And in some ways, it is just kind of like, find the guys who fit best around your best 2 to 3 players. And like, clearly LeBron, KD, Steph, that's kind of who the team's offense is going to be built around. Whether it's LeBron, on ball, or Steph off ball, like, that's clearly what the offense is built around. You just want guys who can slot around that better. Like, I thought Anthony Edwards figured it out pretty well today, just by asserting his athleticism on defense and running. He kind of adjusted to having the ball less in his hands, and just kind of like, look, man, no one's going to keep up with him in the open court. And, he's like maybe the best athlete in the NBA, which means he's maybe the best athlete in the world basketball wise at this point. So he figured it out. But then the obvious ones are guys like Drew Holiday, Derek White, Bam Adebayo. Like, they just naturally play that style around those guys anyway.
Yeah, and like we were talking obviously off air, and I thought it was a perfect example. You kind of likened Anthony Edwards to Dwayne Wade's role on Team USA, and it's just he's going to score like almost by accident, just because running and cutting, and he's so athletic, and he's going to be getting tip-ins and fast break dunks and putbacks. So as long as he's happy with that role, I mean, he's going to thrive.
Yeah. One question I haven't asked you, and I've kind of thought about, like, a lot of this is Steve Kerr has a very specific vision of how he wants a basketball team to play. We call him stubborn when it doesn't work. He's a genius when it works. He's stubborn when it doesn't work, right? Like, he wants half-second basketball. He wants the ball moving. He doesn't like guys who dribble all over the place. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think it's necessary to play that style in international ball, or is this more just like, you hire Steve, you're going to get Steve?
I think it's the latter.
Okay.
Steve's like, I mean, I'm here for a reason.
Sure.
It's okay to think that way. Obviously, I don't think Steve has a huge ego. I really don't. But at the same time, everybody has a little bit of an ego, and he's probably thinking, if I'm here, if they hired me to do the job, I'm going to do it my way. Yeah. And obviously, they have a high margin of error, I should say. Like,
sure. Yeah.
So it's not like what he's doing is probably going to risk winning a gold medal per se. So yeah, he definitely wants to put his imprint on this roster.
Yeah, I do kind of think that FIBA ball is suited for the way he sees the game, though. Just given what you're allowed to do on defense in FIBA that you're not allowed to do in the NBA,
Right.
mostly like there's no 3 second in the key. So maybe that doesn't matter against Serbia, but when you go against France and they get to park Gobert and Wemby
Right
in
down.
the paint, like moving the ball matters more because you're not going to just be able to run a pick and roll and get an easy layup or drive and kick that way. So to me, it's a little bit of both. Like on most nights, no, you probably don't need to be this rigid, but there are going to be times versus better teams where focus on the details matters, particularly in like a shorter game. And I'm sure Kerr would say it, but it's like it's about establishing the habits and all that coaching
Yeah,
jargon, right?
100% coaches talk. You can already hear it from him.
Yeah, no, I do think it's hilarious though watching like the internet react to Steve Kerr's coaching. Like it's like everyone gets to be a Warrior fan finally because it
Right.
reminds me of like it's like it's Tuesday night, it's Warriors, Kings, and Steve's throwing out a 4-guard lineup or something like that, and just all I see on my Twitter is like, what is he doing? That sort of thing. Now I'm seeing it from the entire globe.
Yeah, it's an experience. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. Cool guys. Let's do a quick pay the bill. Guys, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. So, for example, for today's Team USA game, I took the over on LeBron's points, and PrizePicks gave us a free square with 0.5. Felt pretty good about that one. And I took the over on Steph at 12, which actually did not work out very well for me. Steph did not have a particularly explosive game today at 11 points, so I ended up losing. But if Steph had to hit one more shot in garbage time there or had one less foul so he could have stayed on the floor a little longer to hit one more shot, I would have won, and I would have won 3x my money on that play. That's how easy it is. You just pick 2 or more stat projections, and boom, you get your winnings there. Make your deposit today. Remember, guys, $100 match on your first deposit with the promo code LIGHTYEARS. So you put $100 in, PrizePicks will give you an additional $100, and I have $200 to play with. Guys, you can bet $10 and win up to $1,000 depending on what plays you have. So remember, guys, that's code LIGHTYEARS on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Oh, I was just thinking about this. This is like watching KD play with Steph, and like, granted, it's not just Steph, but like specifically playing with Steph just brings back a lot of Warriors nostalgia. Reminds me of the good old days.
The cheat code.
Well, yeah, it is cheat code days. They may win. They may end up winning a ton more titles during Joe Lacob's ownership era. They may not, but they will never be as uniquely dominant as they were in 2017. I think that team's going to be very hard to match. And so I don't think the Suns are going to trade Kevin Durant, but the Suns seem kind of drama. There seems like it's kind of a powder keg, and at some point they're going to probably have to break something up or mix it up in some way. It's just too expensive for a team that's probably still not going to really compete for a title as presently constructed.
Right.
And so here's my question for you. This is completely random, but would you rather the Warriors trade for Lauri Markkanen, who's 27 years old? We've talked through what all the machinations of it look like. You're more or less going to have to give up Podziemski or Kuminga, a bunch of picks, and dudes you're not playing in the rotation anyway, like GP2, Moody. Yeah, like just he doesn't make a lot of money, so you're not necessarily giving up a ton of players to get him. You are giving up a ton of picks, though.
Right.
Someone like Kevin Durant, he's 36. He's still Kevin Durant, though, but he's 36. But he also makes $50 million, so it's a little more complicated to construct a trade. So in theory, this is what a trade for KD would look like. I've left the picks out, but let's assume you're throwing a couple of those in there as well. You would have to give up Andrew Wiggins, GP2 and Looney just to make the contracts match, and Kuminga. It actually matches perfectly. And given that the Suns are over the apron, like there's not a lot of trades they can even do. So this would be one that in theory could work. From the Suns' perspective, they get themselves younger. They get better wing defense, and they'd basically be leaning into Booker and Beal carry the offense. So we're going to put more defenders around them, and now we have more picks and youth and maybe a little more upside. I'm not saying they would do this. I have actually very little belief they would consider something like this, but just curious your opinion. Would you rather do something like this or the proposed Lauri Markkanen trades, knowing that Lauri's 8 years younger than him, 9 years younger?
It's an interesting question because
pure hypothetical.
Yeah, obviously, I hold Kevin Durant in a higher standard than Lauri Markkanen for sure. Yeah. That's not the hang up here. The hang up is just KD's age and his reliability staying on the court. Although you have those questions with Lauri too. He's not exactly an Iron Man. You know what? Man, that's tough. That is tough. I would still go Lauri just because I think you could. I would prefer to keep Kuminga and have him play next to Lauri Markkanen because I think those two would really mesh together on the floor. I think Lauri is somebody who could kind of grow into his role and become like, I don't even know if we've seen what he can actually become, even though he's already been an all-star. KD, obviously, we know what it is. I just don't know if I just have questions with the durability stuff. And as someone who's going through the whole calf Achilles thing, it's brutal. And just those long playoff runs and the young dogs, he just like, yes, KD, we look at him in a certain light and he's accomplished and we saw what he just did with FIBA, but like, it's a young man's game. It's a young man's game. I'd rather get the young guy. We saw in the playoffs, it was a young man's game. We saw when KD went head to head with Ant Edwards. Ant won that matchup. Obviously, it's a very Ant Edwards is amazing, but what I learned is just it's a young man's game, and it's not even a disrespect thing to KD. I would take the younger guy and grow with him.
Yeah, I mean, so here's my lame answer is I would do either of them because it's better than what they have. Like both of these trades would make them better. I think the Lauri one's more attractive because he's younger and you can keep more pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You would keep one of Wiggins or Kuminga if you got Lauri Markkanen, which helps you stay a little more athletic and compete with the younger teams. Mm-hmm. With Kevin Durant and Steph, like offensively, they're gonna put up points against anyone. I don't care if they're young or old, honestly. But those guys, Draymond, yeah, you got like DeAnthony Melton, and that certainly helps. Maybe Trace Jackson Davis grows into a role. You have some pieces around it, but it does come across as like, man, they just are they're lacking a little athleticism and size, and I don't really know how they would get it afterwards. Whereas with Lauri, all right, he's not, if it's a game 6, game 7, I'm trusting KD to do what he does offensively. Lauri Markkanen, I just haven't seen him in that situation. Is he the type of guy who's going to go, 12 for 21 and have 35 points in a key playoff game? Or is he going to go, kind of the Paul George route of, kind of coming up short in those moments, right? Now I'm back to slandering Paul George since he's not on the Warriors. So you don't know, but I mean, it does allow you to build a better team if you go that way. I don't know.
Right. I hear you. Like you said, either one, would be a blessing for sure, especially to cover a team like that. Although KD is kind of grumpy. But I would just go Lauri. I think that's something that you could build towards, and if it works, if it hits, and he plays well here, it gives you a glimmer of hope for life without Steph Curry when that inevitably happens. With KD, life without Steph Curry is also going to be life without KD. They're both going to retire somewhat soon.
Yeah. It is worth noting. This is kind of you wouldn't think of them as like natural players to comp, Lauri Markkanen and KD. But given where KD is at his career right now, like he's more of a 4-5 than a 3 these days. They are kind of similar. They are there's 3 guys in the league who are like over 6'10" and shoot the percentages they shoot from everywhere on the floor. And it's Lauri Markkanen, it's Kevin Durant, and it's Karl Anthony Towns. Right. They do kind of function the same way offensively. Obviously, KD can do way more off the bounce. He's generational, that sort of thing. But it is it would function in the Warriors system pretty similarly. I haven't asked you this. All right. So the Lauri stuff, first off, I'm assuming you agree with me. All the trickle of like media speculation and leaks we've had is just leverage back and forth.
Yeah.
Because we all know like there's this August 6th deadline. And so it's all like Utah trying to get someone to up their offer before a real decision has to be made.
Did you hear what Ramona just said? How there's more
more
than one teams. That was such a like come on, Ramona.
Yeah. No, it's clear, and it's gonna be this way for what, another 8 or so days until they have to make a real decision with the contract, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I haven't asked you. It sounds like Utah wants Podziemski. I get it. He's got 3 more years of team control, made all rookie first team. You don't have to make a contract decision on him, whereas Kuminga, you're going to have to decide how much you want to pay him within 12 months. So I get it from that standpoint. But if you were the Warriors, which of those 2, forget like who you value and how many picks you would attach depending on which one of those players would you rather have on this team next year should they get Lauri Markkanen?
Kuminga. It's funny. I mean, I had that answer locked and loaded because we were posed a question on Saturday on 95.7 The Game. It's very similar. And I said Kuminga. I just like I like the fit with Kuminga on that team. I think Podziemski is a safer bet, obviously, but I think Kuminga is that guy who. It's funny because this other guy is still on the Warriors roster. Kuminga is that guy who could, if he plays the right way, he has the right fit, Steve Kerr has the right confidence in, he could have that picturesque Andrew Wiggins season during the championship year where he's just awesome. I don't know if Podz has that type of season in him. Podz reliable and can be really good, don't get me wrong, and probably will be really good. But the ceiling isn't as high, in my opinion. And I think the spacing that Lauri would create would really benefit Kuminga in his slashing ways out in the break too. I would just go Kuminga. I like the upside there, but there's not a wrong answer, as cliche as that sounds.
I'll take it a step further. If they were to get Lauri Markkanen and keep Kuminga, I think the Warriors should lock Kuminga up early because I think the fit next to Lauri will have him playing himself into more money.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues that the Warriors have had with Kuminga is defensively, he's a 3. He should be guarding the other team's best wing the way that Wiggins does. And he has at times, like most notably the game against the Celtics stands out in my mind where it kind of locked up Tatum down the stretch. Like he has all the tools to be like a premier wing stopper. Obviously he's young, so, up and down, but that happens. But offensively, it's hard to play him at 3 for spacing reasons because he's not really a shooting threat. And that's kind of been, and maybe this is Steve's fault, but like that's been kind of the thing he's had issues figuring out, like, how do I get him in the lineup? If I play him at the 4, we're giving up size and we have other issues and that sort of thing. And that's
he's not really going to pound the boards.
Yeah, and he's also like not really suited to guard that position either. It's like, again, you want him guarding Tatum, you want him guarding Luka, you want him being that guy. You don't want him trying to like help boxing out on Embiid and that or Jokic or like the big guys like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So But someone like Lauri, to your point, since he's such a great shooting threat, would allow Kuminga to play the 3 on defense and like kind of like the de facto like 5-man on offense in some way. Like he'd get to do what Jaylen Brown does, which is since they play 5-out spacing, Jaylen Brown just gets to go 1-on-1 at the rim and like Kuminga, like no one's stopping them if they get a 1-on-1 with no help at the rim. They're too athletic, too quick, all that stuff. So
you want to foul people out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like an element the Warriors really haven't had, which is always kind of like one of the most attractive things about Kuminga's game, where it's like, it's nice having someone who puts pressure on the rim. It's nice having someone who, if it's their, they get 10 free throw attempts a game. Sometimes this team doesn't even get 10 free throw attempts as a team.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, I get it. I agree with you in some ways. The only thing Podziemski, I mean, he's just a different player. He might be a lead guard in a post Steph Curry era. He might, and so giving that up would suck, but also you got to give something up. So
you got to give to get.
Yeah. Right now the Warriors are trying to just get without really giving. So
I don't know. Moody and Looney and some picks.
I mean, that's the other part of it. Like they don't even have that many picks to give. Like I get it. The post Steph Curry picks are very attractive because like, who knows if the Warriors are going to be good, Like right. They might accidentally give you the 4th pick in the draft or something, right? Yeah. But like it's only 2 picks, whereas like the Spurs, if they wanted to, like they could give you 7 picks and not feel it, because they've like acquired from Atlanta and random teams and all these little small trades that the Warriors never do.
Right.
Did you see Steph's quote this week?
To Mark Spears?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Can I give you my thought on it, and you tell me if I'm off base or on base here? So I'm going to share it. It says that I want to win. Let's put it this way. It's a long-winded way of saying it. But if it is a situation where you're a bottom feeder and it's just because you want to stay there, I'd have a hard time with that. But I don't think that's going to be reality. This is such a Steph Curry quote. He's kind of just talking in circles. And if you really want to, like, take it for something, you can, but it doesn't really mean anything to me. It's like, I don't expect him to be thrilled if the Warriors decide to bottom out and put him next to like the 2019 roster. But I think that's all he's saying. Like, as long as we're in the mix, I'll be here.
Yeah. I took the exact same thing. In this aggregation world, everybody's like make something out of nothing. But he said, which was like blatantly obvious. No, if the Warriors want to tank and bottom out, I might take issue with that. If we're competing and trying, I'm going to be riding with these guys. And I think that's just pretty obvious. I think we all probably didn't even need to hear him say that. You know what I mean? What guy of his esque wants to play on a bottom feeding team? Yeah. I mean, he just said it obvious. People are going to run with quotes. Sure. Steph, Steph cares about like his legacy and being here, and his roots are here, and he's always intentional about giving back to this community, and like not just being an athlete who plays here, but also like just being a member of the Bay Area community. I think that means something to him, and his actions have proved that means something to him. We don't even have to speculate. Just actions speak louder than words. All the things he does outside the court that affect this community. So no, I don't think he would go anywhere just to like chase a ring. Now, if they, like you said, if they force his hand and they were on some like crazy, we're going to focus on making our future better, and we're kind of going to bottom out. Yeah, that might force his hand, but like Steph said, I don't really see that happening, and so I don't really see it being an issue. The only thing I could see Steph doing, and it's a far-fetched, Steph having like one final year and he just like goes and plays in Charlotte for nostalgia purposes. And like, this is at like
the home tour.
Yeah, this is at like 42 years old. And it's like, it's understood. Like I'm not doing it because I don't like Golden State. I think it would be unique to go play in Charlotte, where I had a lot of my formative years, and my dad works for the broadcast team. Like, that's the only thing I could see. And even that's probably far-fetched.
Yeah. Do you think so? My read on the Warriors right now is, look, they let Clay walk. They made a bunch of like positive like moves in the margins. Like they could have used guys like DeAnthony Melton, Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, like the last 2 to 3 years. Like those guys just help you incrementally.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of flexibility. That's like really what I'm looking, what do they like to say? Optionality. A lot of optionality with this roster.
Right.
They clearly want to make a big move. They tried to get Paul George, didn't happen. We'll see what happens with Lauri Markkanen. Do you think Steph and Draymond remain patient with this team if Lauri doesn't happen? Because right now they're painting it as, look, we're keeping everything open. So when someone is available, we have the ability to get them. We wouldn't have had the ability to get them if we gave like Clay a, 4-year, $100 million contract and like that sort of thing. Do you think they will remain patient on that front, or do you think there'll come a point where they're just over it?
Well,
there's always comes a point. That's kind of
no. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. If you take what Draymond said the other day on that Jeff Teague podcast at face value, which I don't think you should. I think that Dre probably got a little diarrhea of the mouth and putting a mic in this guy's face all the time. We just talk sometimes. Where he said, I'd rather not even make the playoffs if it's not a championship team, like first, second round. Like I don't want to be on that team. And I'm like, Dre, you're on that team right now. That's the roster that you're on right now. So what are you saying? So it's weird. I think it's interesting. I think they did make this roster a little more flexible to be able to make a big splash, whether it's this summer or maybe at the trade deadline. I think they stay patient as long as Steph is locked in, which I think he's going to be. Draymond's going to be locked in. Draymond kind of follows Steph's lead when it comes to that and being assertive on the court. So I think they'll lock in. Obviously, the reality right now, this roster is better, I think, but what did that count for? I mean, they were a 10 seed last year. What did they? Maybe 6th. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, last year, like after the top 3 teams, OKC, Minnesota, Denver, 4 through 10, there wasn't that much of a margin between.
It was about 2 games, yeah. And I agree with you. 2 years ago they won 44 games. Last year they actually won more. They won 46. This team's pacing for that same win total, like a shade over 500. If guys stay healthy, maybe they get up to 47, 48. If guys are unhealthy, they might be at 41 wins, that type of thing. Yeah. So that's kind of where they're at right now. But yeah, no, I mean, this is the first time really in the last decade they've kind of entered the year with what I like to call like a Daryl Morey roster, where he's like, I know it's not complete, but I have it'll be competitive, but I have the ability to pivot when the actual, needle changing player comes available, which is like, I mean, I'm talking about Philly, but like that's what they did last year. They purposely kept it as flexible as possible because they thought they could get Paul George. And what happened? They got Paul George. Exactly. So that might just be the best course of action rather than like overpaying for a team that has no shot to really get past the second round.
No, 100%. I see the vision. You just got to execute it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah, no, that is. It's like, yeah, it's cool. Paul George was interested, but you couldn't execute. Like, right. Nice, and then like, oh, Lowry's interested. Well, let's see, in a week's time, we might call them geniuses, or in a week's time, we'll be like, all right, how long are we going to wait for the next guy? So,
right.
But I'll end it there. Appreciate your time, man.
Of course,
how's the Achilles feeling otherwise?
Better day by day. I played 18 holes of golf in Colombia last week.
Did you walk?
No, hell no.
Okay,
we had a car. I still have a mean limp. I still have limited range of motion and limited strength. But I'm walking on my own 2 feet, which is like does so much for the mental. Getting out of the boot, getting off the crutches, just that alone brings the spirits up. So I'm doing well.
Can you remind me? Was it the right or the left?
It's the right.
The right. So
it was my driving foot. So it's my back. It's my back foot. So like it's like the baseball ankle when you're pitching.
Yeah.
that twisting motion is fine. It doesn't affect the Achilles. I can do that
I'm
fine. I was still driving the ball, hitting straight. Actually played pretty well for being someone who hadn't played since May and had Achilles surgery 7 weeks prior.
Nice. Yeah, no. I'm a lefty, including golf, left-handed. So every time someone's like explain it to me, I'm like trying to reverse it in my head.
Yeah,
It's just
right.
so complicated. That's good to hear, man. All right.
Appreciate it.